Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff in Portugal, looking out over the vast, churning Atlantic Ocean. The water looks the same as it always has. It is blue, restless, and stretches out to the curve of the earth. But looks are deceiving. Beneath that rolling surface, something broken is happening. The massive underwater engine that keeps the northern hemisphere livable is sputtering. It is running out of gas. The ocean is not just a bathtub of water, it is a conveyor belt. It is a global circulatory system, pumping warm water from the tropics up toward the north, heating up places like London, Paris, and Berlin. Without this heat, those cities would feel more like Siberia. This system is called the AMOC, the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation. It is a mouthful to say, but the job it does is simple. It stops Europe from turning into a block of ice. And right now, the sensors down in the dark depths are screaming a warning. The flow is slowing down. It is the weakest it has been in a millennium. The narrative moves from the coast to the open ocean, where massive research vessels bob like toys in the swells. The equipment goes overboard, sinking miles down. The data coming back up is terrifying the people reading it. The pulse of the ocean is fading. To understand why, picture a glass of salty water and a glass of fresh water. Salt water is heavy, it sinks. That sinking action is the motor. The warm, salty water travels north, cools down, gets heavy, sinks to the bottom, and flows back south. It's a perfect loop. But something is jamming the gears. Far to the north, the massive ice sheet of Greenland is melting. It is dumping billions of tons of fresh water into the ocean every single day. Fresh water is light, it floats. It acts like a lid sitting on top of the heavy salt water, preventing it from sinking. It's like putting a cap on a chimney. The heat gets trapped, the circulation stops, and the conveyor belt grinds to a halt. If this belt snaps, the reaction will not take centuries. It will not be a slow, boring graph on a screen. It will be violent, and it will be fast. We are talking about a temperature drop of 10 degrees Celsius in Europe within a single decade. In the world of climate, that is not weather. That is a planetary car crash. The scene shifts to a visualization of what this actually looks like on the ground. Winter in London usually means rain and gray skies, but in this scenario, the Thames freezes solid, not just a thin layer of ice, but thick enough to drive a truck over. The infrastructure of modern Europe, the pipes, the power grids, the transport systems, is not built for Arctic conditions. Rails snap, power lines sag and break under the weight of ice storms that last for weeks. It brings to mind the Hollywood blockbuster The Day After Tomorrow. People laughed at that movie. They said the science was exaggerated. And sure, superstorms freezing people instantly is movie magic. But the core concept, the idea that the current shuts down and the north freezes, that part is real. That part is physics. And the timeline is shrinking. But while the north shivers in a new ice age, the rest of the world does not get off easy. Energy has to go somewhere. Heat does not just vanish. If the ocean stops moving that heat to the north, it piles up in the south. The narrative takes the viewer to the tropics, to the Amazon rainforest and the coastlines of Africa. Here, the problem is the opposite. The heat becomes unbearable. The ocean water gets so hot it kills the coral reefs instantly. The air becomes heavy and suffocating. The chaotic weather systems that rely on the ocean currents to regulate rain begin to fail. The monsoon seasons in India and West Africa, which billions of people rely on to grow food, could simply vanish. The rain belts shift south. Crops wither in the ground. The soil turns to dust. It's a split-screen disaster. On one side, snowplows are buried in drifts in Berlin. On the other side, fields are burning in Brazil. The scary part is the tipping point. This is a phrase used often, but in this context, it means a point of no return. It's like tilting a chair back on two legs. You can wobble for a while, but once you go past a certain angle, you fall. You cannot catch yourself. The AMOC is wobbling. The fresh water from melting ice is the hand pushing the chair.
Let's look at the storms. When you have a freezing cold north clashing with a boiling hot south, the atmosphere goes to war. The temperature difference drives the jet stream. The winds pick up speed. The Atlantic becomes a breeding ground for storms that make modern hurricanes look like gentle breezes. These storms would slam into the coast of Europe and North America, bringing wind speeds that rip roofs off houses and storm surges that drown coastal cities. The water level itself is a player in this tragedy. The Gulf Stream actually pulls water away from the American East Coast. It's a gravitational quirk. If the stream stops, that water sloshes back. Sea levels along New York, Boston, and Miami could jump up by a meter independent of melting ice. That's instant flooding. That's salt water in the subways. The perspective moves to the agricultural heartlands. In Europe, the growing season basically ends. You can't grow wheat in a tundra. The food basket of the continent empties out. The economic shock would be greater than any depression in history. How do you feed a continent when the ground is frozen for 9 months of the year? Meanwhile, the narrative observes the scientific community. There used to be a debate. Some said this would take centuries. Now the models are turning red. Some studies suggest the collapse could happen as soon as 2025 or anytime in the next few decades. It's Russian roulette with the climate system. The silence of a frozen landscape is eerie. The script describes a modern city, perhaps Amsterdam or Copenhagen, under the grip of this new climate. The canals are solid. The wind howling through the streets sounds like a wolf. The lights in the windows are dim because energy is scarce. It's a picture of regression, a high-tech society brought to its knees by the oldest force on Earth, the weather. Then there's the ocean itself. Without the churning, the mixing of nutrients stops. The deep ocean runs out of oxygen. Marine life dies off in massive numbers. The rotting biomass releases hydrogen sulfide, a gas that smells like rotten eggs and is toxic. The blue ocean turns a murky, sickly green. The fishing fleets pull up empty nets. The collapse of the current is the collapse of the food web. The story looks at the psychological impact. Humans are adaptable, sure. We survived the last ice age, but we were hunter-gatherers then. We moved with the herds. We didn't have mortgages, borders, and static infrastructure. You can't just pick up a city like Paris and move it to the Sahara. The collision of static borders and shifting climate creates chaos. The screen zooms out to space, looking down on the blue marble. You can see the white creeping down from the top, covering Scandinavia, the UK, huge chunks of Russia and Canada, and you can see the brown, dry bands widening around the equator. It looks like a different planet. It looks hostile. This is not about saving the planet. The planet has been hot before, it has been cold before. The planet will be fine. This is about the specific set of conditions that allowed human civilization to thrive. We built our world during a rare Goldilocks period, where the climate was stable. The AMOC was the thermostat that kept it that way, and now we are smashing the thermostat with a hammer. The interaction between the melting ice and the slowing current is a feedback loop. The warmer it gets, the more ice melts. The more ice melts, the slower the current gets. The slower the current gets, the weird weather gets. It creates localized cooling in a globally warming world. It sounds contradictory, but it's entirely possible to have a frozen Europe in a globally warming world. The narrative focuses on the sounds again, the crack of a glacier calving into the sea. That sound is usually majestic. Now it sounds like a gunshot. It's the sound of the fresh water bomb hitting the ocean. Every iceberg that falls is another nail in the coffin of the Gulf Stream. The video content needs to emphasize the contrast, fire and ice. It's a cliché, but here it's literal. The viewer sees the juxtaposition of a blizzard burying a car in London, while a forest fire consumes a village in the Amazon. It's the same coin, two different sides. The scientists monitoring the flow rate uses cables stretched across the Atlantic. They measure the voltage induced by the moving saltwater. The line on the chart is trending down. It jitters, it spikes, but the direction is clear. It's heading towards zero. Zero means the conveyor belt stops. When it stopped in the ancient past during the last glacial period, the temperature changes happened in just a few years. Imagine a child starting primary school in a temperate climate and finishing high school in a tundra. That's the speed we're talking about. It's fast enough to see with the naked eye. The script touches on the complacency. People look out the window today and see sunshine. They think it's fine. But the delay in the system is deceptive. The heat we have already trapped is baking into the system. The ice that is destined to melt is already melting. The momentum is there. Stopping it now is like trying to stop a freight train with a sheet of paper. As the narrative winds down, the focus returns to the individual. Standing on the beach, feeling the wind. That wind is connected to the water. The water is connected to the ice. It's all one machine, and the machine is breaking. The final moments of the video prompt should feel heavy but urgent. The Gulf Stream is the heartbeat of the Atlantic, and right now the arrhythmia is getting worse. The doctors, the scientists are shouting, but the patient is not listening. The video fades from the stormy, chaotic ocean to a still, white screen of frost. Silence returns, but it's not a peaceful.
The Himalayas, the roof of the world, where the peaks pierce the deep